being recorded. So today mostly what we're going to do is cover how to use Photoshop to mimic what a menu would look like in our design. Now mostly through programming is the way that I would build a menu. I would not use graphics, but you know, as far as we're planning a design, you should be able to simulate a menu. I think we kind of looked at that. So I'm going to start in Photoshop. Now the version of Photoshop I'm using is 2015.5, which is different than the ones probably on these computers here. There's a couple different types of graphics I'm going to cover. Again, we're just mimicking what a menu might look like using the tools in Photoshop. And the first major concept you're going to have to know about, of course, would be, and I'm not going to worry too much about size right now, but what I am going to do as far as, I'm going to say File New to make a new file inside of Photoshop. I'm going to use a little higher resolution, like 150 pixels per inch. And so I know the traditional web design from the past 20 years, we were always using 72 dpi. That was like the kind of common resolution that we would use for any kind of web graphics. So when you're in a new file window inside of Photoshop, you have custom, or you have documents. Of course, you have the web, mobile, film, iconography, art and illustration. I'm just in the default web one. I'm going to use the default web one. But instead of using 72, I'm going to use 150. And the reason why I'm going to use 150 is so that the graphics will be a little bit higher resolution. Remember, we're just mimicking what it's going to look like. If I wouldn't really use these graphics. I'm just mimicking. Okay? So I'm going to hit OK. And again, it gives me a standard screen. Now, the most important thing to know when we're building is what is the difference between a vector shape or a vector object and a bitmap object. So Photoshop, and the most fundamental of computer graphics, of course, is the bitmap. And I am going to have to draw a little bit on the board too. So, of course, back in the bitmap, also referred to as raster. So that's images that are made out of pixels. And pixels are those little squares that we see in our image. And when we're using 24-bit, each of those, one of those pixels can be 16 million different combinations. The problem, of course, that we run into is if I'm making my graphics in pixels inside of Photoshop and I want to scale them. If I scale them larger, you're blowing the pixels up and graphics tend to get blurry. Okay, so when we're using pixels or bitmap images inside of Photoshop, I tend not to use them for web graphics because I want to be able to scale and resize things easy without having to deal with pixels being blown up and shrinking them down. So primarily what I use when I'm making web graphics is vectors. And of course, vectors are what we make in Illustrator, but you can make vectors inside of Photoshop. That we looked at that already. Of course, a vector is a mathematical equation of a shape. And of course, probably the most common vectors that we use in web graphics would be called SVG, which stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. What SVG stands for. Okay, and even if you go to the Noun project, right? Remember the Noun project where we were looking at icons, right? It gives you the option of either downloading PNG or SVG. Okay, why PNG would be this, SVG would be vector. Okay, the advantage of using a vector in your graphics, of course, is that it's going to be smaller file size. These are bigger file sizes. It has the file has to keep track of all those little dots. Where if I'm using vectors, it's just a mathematical equation. There are some downfalls of using SVG, though. They don't really work on apps very well. This works much better in apps, like Xcode. But on web pages, this somewhat works, but it can be tricky at times. We're going to mostly use vectors inside of Photoshop. I'll show you some of the advantages and disadvantages of vectors in Photoshop. So here we go. The most vector tools are down here, right here. Now, the rectangle tool, round rectangle tool, and the ellipse tool all have special, these are kind of special. Where these ones down here are not very special. What do I mean by special? Okay, so if I just use a plain rectangle tool, again, these are the vector shape tools. They're down here, all the way down towards the bottom. It looks like a rectangle right here. Okay, rectangle tool. Before I draw with the rectangle tool or any of these tools here, there's two options for them. One of them is called path, and the other one's called shape. Right here, you'll notice it says shape right here. You got paths and pixels even. We don't want to use pixels. You got shape, path. Now path is great because you can use it to select things, and I can copy and paste from paths to and so on. I use paths to define the edge of an object so I can make a selection. But usually if I am making a rectangle and I want it to be vector for a button, I'm going to use shape right here. So again, I'm using the rectangle tool. I'm using shape here. If I draw a basic shape of a rectangle for a graphic, it'll put the color that I have in here. Notice if I click on the color again, I think we were looking at this last class, but I haven't made a video on it. Again, you have you have solid color, you can put a gradient in there, as well as a texture in there. Now this isn't the only way you can put a gradient on. There's other ways of doing it, usually using effects, and we'll learn about that. But that's what the reason why I said this was special is because you have these options here, which is different. If I go and let's go down here and I draw, let's say the Polygon tool. Let's say I draw the Polygon tool. If I draw the Polygon tool, oops, there we go, and I come up here to fill, let me make it a little bit different now. Hold on. Let me delete this actually. If I use the Polygon tool and let's say I want to make a triangle, right? You want to make a triangle. You can use the Polygon tool and you can click on the screen once and let your finger up. It'll actually ask you how many sides you want, and you could say, okay, I want a triangle. So how do I make a triangle? Easily, you put 3, triangle, 3. You can have smooth corners or pointy corners. Of course, we want pointy corners. And if I hit OK right there, it'll give me a basic triangle shape. Again, I can fill it with some colors here, but it'll give me a basic triangle shape. And then I can use my scale tool to scale it. Again, the scale tool is this one right here. When you're done using the move tool right here, you can also adjust it. So those are two kind of basic ways of making shapes. You got Polygon tool, again rectangle tool, ellipse tool, and so on. And I think last class we looked at how you can change the shape of these, right? By using the properties window. Remember I made round tops. Remember I made round tops by going over here and changing the round tops. I'm not going to go over that again, but if you remember from the first time we were looking at that, you can actually adjust the actual look of an object after you've selected it. Now this one's different. Like I just told you, this one doesn't have round edges. This one does. This one doesn't. This one does. This one doesn't. Notice how I can't now change the color either. So I don't know. Sometimes this one has a whole bunch of effects. This one doesn't after I've made it. Let's make another shape. Again, you have custom shapes down here. Now custom shapes down here are a great way of bringing in other shapes. You'll notice you can have a whole bunch of other shapes in here. You got arrows, artistic, banners. Where is this located? Again, I have chosen, let me start again. Here is the custom shape tool. After you choose the custom shape tool, you can actually come over here to the options at the very top up here. You can change the color before you put a custom shape on there. Say we change the color. Then right here in the window over here, you'll notice you have something called shape. Again, I'm using custom shape here. There is a shape option here. There's some pre-made shapes already there, but you can also load more shapes in there. You got nature, music, light bulb. Let's say you want a light bulb shape. You can hit a pen, there it is. You can drag that out. Or just click and drag, that'll make it. And it gives you a light bulb shape. Okay, so there's a bunch of shapes. Again, it's called custom shape tool. It's right here. When you're using the custom shape tool, you can actually load more. You can buy shapes. You can download shapes. There's a whole web section here. Let's see what's in there. Look at that. They have arrows already made for you. They have you know, pre-made I got a shopping cart right here. You want a shopping cart? Boom. There it is. Again, the reason why I'm using this is because it's a vector. These are all vectors, and since they're vectors, you can actually manipulate them. If you want to change their size, you can actually use the scaling tool and scale it up without losing resolution. Okay? There's no pixels in there. If you hit apply, you'll see it's nice and sharp edge, right? These are vector shapes. This is the custom shape right here. Custom, again, custom shapes, and then you have a bunch of them here. So those are really good tools to get you started in building common interface elements. Okay, let's continue. I'm going to delete all this crap and start over.
What happens if you just start off with like a bigger image to begin with?
Which one?
Instead of using a custom shape or something, or you saying losing the pixels or losing resolution, what happens if you just start off with a really big image to begin with and then shrink it down?
That's fine. I mean, what you're just trying to get to is so that the quality of the image looks well. You know, I don't know. I know what you're saying. Don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. Oh, to change the color is here, up here, as well as you can put a gradient in there or a texture in there. Okay, so those are common shapes that you might want to use. Whenever you're using them, if you want to manipulate the object itself, let's say you made a vector object and you want to change it. Just like you have inside of Illustrator, you have the ability to, vectors are all made out of points and lines between the points. And so you do have the ability to alter your objects. Again, you can use this tool right above it. You got your path selection tool and a direct selection tool, just like you have in Illustrator. And I can grab a point and I can move it. Okay? Okay, so you can manipulate an object by manipulating the points. Again, the tool that I'm using is this one, the direct selection tool. There we go. We'll make a new shopping cart. There we go. How about that? Is that a better shopping cart? Again, that was this tool to manipulate the vectors, just like you have inside of Illustrator. Okay, let's make a navigational bar for photography site. Two concepts I have. One of them is a navigational bar that is kind of like McDonald's. Anybody been to McDonald's website before? Go ahead. Who likes McDonald's website? Alright, let's go. Mickey D's. Oh, they changed their site. Oh, they used to have this beautiful menu that went down the side. Oh, they've changed it. Bummer. They used to have this beautiful menu that had red along the side over here, and they've changed it. Okay, whatever. But it used to be kind of a left pull-down menu right here, and it was red, and it had white text with a kind of the yellow line that goes in between it. So actually, the navigational bar I'm going to make is going to be I'm going to start with a rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. It's going to be kind of down this way. What am I trying to say? Vertical. So I'm going to change some colors. Let me get to a nice tan. There we go. Beautiful tan. And then I'm going to type in some text. I'm going to use my text tool, and I'm not going to type inside here. I'm going to type outside. And the text I want to type, let's say, what does he sell? Give me a navigational bar for John. What would it be? Commercial. Whoosh. And again, it's using right align. I'm going to use left align for right now. And woo, blue. Whenever you're typing in text, you can scale them inside here, or of course you could use the type tool. Using the type tool. Right now 48 is pretty big. Here we go. Commercial. Ooh, look at that blue. Okay, so we have commercial. Now let's talk about effects. A lot of times you'll see effects applied to, and I think I showed you that. Remember the gradients and highlights and shadows? Probably one of the most common effects that you'll see, and it's built right in the Xcode, is the bevel and emboss. The bevel and emboss. The bevel and emboss, if you're going to mimic it inside of Photoshop, is located in the layers window. And if you look in the layers window, you'll notice you have the FX at the bottom down here, right here. See how it says FX right here? If you click on that, you'll see there's all these effects that you can apply. Probably one of the more common ones, of course, is a bevel and emboss. What does bevel and emboss do? Well, it gives you kind of a highlight on the top and then a shadow towards the bottom. It gives it a 3D sculpted look. Okay, and you can adjust settings. You don't want to have, no, this is not changing anything. I guess size would change it more. You can see the effect. You can even get kind of like a highlight effect using this also. Okay, bevel and emboss is very common. Okay, you have inner, outer bevel, emboss, pillow emboss. Look at that one. And stroke emboss. That didn't do anything. The plain emboss actually gives you probably the most. And so that's a very common look, and you can get things like this built right into Xcode. They do have some kind of embossing like that. So let's say with John's website, we wanted to have an icon that goes along with our image, right? We want to have like maybe a little camera icon that goes next to our picture or our text, okay? So I know we went to the noun project, right? Remember the noun project? Well, we're going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to use a little bit of Illustrator as well as Photoshop. So in my idea, I'm going to have a little icon over here of what would be commercial. Commercial what? Commercial building? Commercial... When he says commercial in John's website, what does it mean?
Photography.
Photography. Commercial photography? Okay, so maybe a camera. We want to put a little camera here? Okay, let's get a camera. So let's go steal from the noun project. So if I log into the noun project, we can search for camera. Camera. Search anything. Camera. We have already done this already. And of course, I don't have an account with them. But I do want to steal one of these, right? So we learned how to steal. Let's say I like this one right here. It's a great one. So it says download. Remember I talked about downloading. You have both SVG, which would be vector. Remember I talked about that, as well as PNG, which would be bitmap with pixels. So it gives you these choices. You can download one or the other. I don't have an account right this moment. I did it maybe somewhere. I don't know. Let's say you don't have an account. How can I get this, make it a vector, and bring it into Photoshop? So the easiest way I would do is take a screen capture, right? We learned how to do that already by using, at least we're on a Mac. Of course, you can use the snipping tool on Windows, right? But on a Mac, I can use Command-Shift-4, and I can draw a box around it. The problem with making a screen capture, though, right, is that it's going to make it bitmap, right? The screen capture is bitmap. So that's not really going to help me inside of my design. I still want it to be vector. So we're going to actually take this screen capture, bring it into Illustrator, convert it to a vector, and then copy and paste that vector into Photoshop. So those are the steps I'm going to do to get this icon directly into Photoshop. Is I'm going to go through Illustrator. Here's how I would do it. I would open up Illustrator. If it works here, there we go. I'm going to make a new file in Illustrator. So I'm going to open up Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to take that image that I just took a screen grab of, and I'm going to place it inside of Illustrator. To place it inside of Illustrator, I use File, Place, hence the word place. I go File, Place. I take that image that I just took of the camera and place it in there. And you can draw a box on how big you want it. Doesn't matter right this moment. We're going to convert it into a vector. So I take and place, again, it's under File, Place, to place the screen capture that I just took from the Noun Project website. Now I want to convert this to a vector and remove the white objects. So whenever you convert a bitmap to a vector inside of Illustrator, it's going to give you both the white part and the black part in this case. There is an option inside of the image trace tool, and the tool that we use is called image trace. And what image trace does inside of Illustrator is it takes any bitmap image you have and convert it into a vector for you. So by default though, if you don't change the settings, if you just say image trace right here, it's going to convert it into a vector, but the white part will be there, and I'm going to remove the white part and just keep the black part. So here we go. Again, I'm going to convert this screen capture I just took into a vector by clicking the button that says image trace right here at the top. It converts it, and you're saying, well, I didn't see much of a difference. Well, what it did was it converted it to objects. Okay, so now there are vector shapes in there, but I want to be able to remove the white part. To remove the white part, I hit expand right here, expand. So again, image trace, then expand, and now it's taken and converted all the objects into separate objects, and now I can delete them. In this case, if I want, I'm going to use the direct selection tool right here, and I'm going to click the white part, and I'm going to hit delete on the keyboard, and I think it deleted everything. Oh, there's a little bit of white in there. I want to get rid of that. Boom. So again, there were some white objects, and I just want to keep the black ones. You can, if I click around, you can see the black objects are here, the black objects are here, black objects are there. And the reason why is when I bring this into Photoshop, I don't want no color in between here. If you want color in there, you can add color back in there. You can probably leave the white in there if you wanted it in there. You could probably put a circle object in there behind everything or something. I mean, there is a way, but I just didn't want the white box that you saw that it came over with. So in order to get this now into Photoshop, I can actually copy and paste. So if I take this object that I have inside of Illustrator and I select all the objects by drawing a box around there to select them all, select everything. Copy is Command-C on the keyboard, of course, or edit copy. And I'm going to go back to Photoshop. Now when I'm in Photoshop, I'm going to paste it. To paste this object in Photoshop, I go under Edit, Paste, Edit, Paste. And it's going to ask me, how do I want to paste it? Okay, it's going to give you a couple different options. You got Smart Object, Pixels, Path, Shape Layer. Pretty much we don't want pixels because I want to keep it a vector. A smart object is good because it's going to paste it as a vector. Paths, it's just going to give you lines. And then you have shape layer, and then I'm going to turn this off, add to my current library. What is the library? So in Photoshop now, you have a login, right? If you log in, because you all have an account, right? You have to have an account to have Photoshop. Well, by default, it's storing data in the cloud for you now. Photoshop has gone cloud-based. So you have something called a library now, where as you are working in Photoshop, it can keep track of what you're doing and make that objects available later on in a different project. So it's kind of like a storage spot. I'm going to turn it off for now because I don't want to deal with it right now. But do you see where it says add to my current library? It's kind of a way of storing data that you can use over and over again inside of Photoshop. It's kind of new to Photoshop. I don't know if it's even on these computers here in front of you. I don't know. But what does the Photoshop have here? Did it have an option for library in the Photoshop here? Okay. The problem, of course, is you're not logged in here, right? This is not your account on these, so that's a problem. But for right now, I'm gonna use Smart Object. Why do I use Smart Object? Because it keeps vector. It's a vector shape inside of Photoshop. So if I hit OK, it'll bring my camera in. I can shrink it down. I can move it around. I can shrink it down. and I can move it around. When I'm done, I can hit the plus button here, and you'll see my icon is here. It looks kind of pixelated. Everything looks pixelated, but it is a vector. Can I color it? I want it to be the same blue maybe as the I want it to be the same blue as this. Can I color it? Well, in this case, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm sure there's a way to color it. I think I need to double click on it and then go back to, yeah, it's making a reference back to the original. Let's do it a different way. How about that? Let's do it a different way. I'm going to go back to Photoshop for a moment. Did you notice how since you put it in as a smart object, it's making a reference back to the original Illustrator file, and then you could go and change it there. But that's one way to get it in there as a vector, smart object. Let's do another way. I'm going to go under Edit, Paste. This time I'm going to use Shape Layer. Shape Layer will also be a vector shape, but again it can be changed the color. It changed it to the blue. Did you notice that? The reason why I changed it to blue is because blue was the color I had here. So it is also another object, and that is another vector. Again, it was called, instead of using smart object, which references the original vector shape that you had inside of Illustrator, this one is kind of like a object that, remember when we were drawing with these objects here? It's like bringing a custom shape in, and you can actually then go and change the color and stuff like that.
Can you, like, I stay behind the bottom of Illustrator, can you show me like, how you do that icon? Like, I skip all the part without trying to download it.
What's that?
The camera part, how you do the Illustrator? How do you, like, copy the camera icon into that?
You mean from here?
I know, not in the Illustrator, when you make it all the white. It means how do you cut out the thing in Illustrator? Yeah, I was doing on my MacBook, but I don't have Illustrator in it, so I stayed behind.
Well, the reason why I was using Illustrator, so it would be a vector, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if I don't have Illustrator, I'm not making a vector. You can still use the camera, the screen grab inside of Photoshop. You can bring it.
So then how you?
You can bring it in. You can open it in Photoshop. Here's my picture. Here's the screen grab. Right? Is that what you're asking? Here's the screen grab. If I copy it, and copy is Command C, Command A, select all, Command C, copy, and then I can paste it in here, Command V. The problem, of course, is I have the white around the outside, right? So you can copy and paste from the screen grab in there, but of course it's bitmap now, it's not vector.
I think he's asking like how you cut it out, all the white, and made it vector in Illustrator.
In how to do it in Illustrator again?
I'm asking like what do you do in the Illustrator, so you will be able to like copy the camera out into the Photoshop. Yeah, like how you do that. Yeah.
How I did this?
Yeah.
I placed the screen grab into Illustrator, right? And then I converted it to a vector using image trace. Right here, image trace, and then I did expand, right here, expand converts it into objects, and then I deleted the white part by using the direct selection tool to select the white parts and hit delete on the keyboard. And I hit delete on the keyboard, which just left me with the black parts. There is a white one in there still. You can delete that if you want. So then I copied and pasted from here and went into Photoshop and pasted there. And I used Shape Layer. That's how I did it. Okay, so we have one icon. Beautiful icon, right? Okay. So Let's put a line that goes across. To make a line go across my menu here. Well, before we do that, let's say you remember the bevel and emboss I applied to my my text. Do you remember that? So let's say you want to apply that same bevel and emboss to my shape right here. The easiest way to copy effects that you've done to one thing to another thing is inside the layer window right here. In the layer window, right here is the little effects. See the effects that I applied, the bevel and emboss? If you hold down the Option key, Option, click and drag, you can copy an effect to another object. Oh, that was Smart Object. It's not what I wanted. Let me delete this. I don't want that Smart Object. Okay, here we go. I want to take this effect I have applied to the text and apply it to the camera icon. To do that, I can hold down the Option key. In the Layers window, there again is the effect right there. You can see it. There's an effect applied to some text. If I hold down the Option key and click and drag, it will apply that same effect to whatever I applied to. Now the camera has the bevel and emboss as well. Did you see that? I'll do it again. To duplicate effects that you have applied to something. I applied some effects to the text. I want to take those same effects right there and apply it to the camera. I'm going to hold down the Option key and click and drag, and then it'll apply it there as well. So you can duplicate. That way you're not trying to, try and remember what you did, right? You're not going to remember the bevel and emboss settings. Okay? Now I'm going to draw a line between them. There is a line tool that's underneath here. It's called the line tool. It's the same vector place. And let's draw a little line between my, here we go, my menu here. There we go, a line. Okay. So just like before, I have multiple objects. I'm going to want to duplicate them. Okay, I'm going to duplicate my text. So what was another menu item for John? We have commercial. What's another one? What's that? Contact. Would that be right after commercial? What would be after commercial? We're going to have commercial, contact, and that's it? Commercial 2? I don't know. Does he have portraits? Is there landscapes? I don't know. Have you guys done any thought about what his menu would be? I thought that's what we did the mind map last class for.
Well, I think that we wanted to figure out what his clientele would be. So that was part of what we were trying to figure out. Was it more geared towards the commercial angle, or?
I don't know. Give me a button. Landscape? Would that be an option he would have? Okay. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this. Again, you can hold down Option, click and drag. And since it's left align, I can then type in landscape. Beautiful blue. Okay, so we need a landscape icon. I'm going to go back to my noun project. Let's cheat. How about we type in landscape? Which one would be landscape to you? Ooh, I like this guy cutting grass. Is that landscape? No? Okay. Which one's landscape? This is too open. It needs to look like the photo icon that we have, the other one. Right? Very dark and contrasty. It should look like the other one, right? Yeah. Maybe this? Like that? Okay. Take a screen grab. I'm going to use the same technique. Place it into Illustrator. Convert it to a vector by using trace image. Expand it. Delete the white part. Oops. Woo, crazy. Crazy. Delete the white part and then select this whole thing. Copy. Go into Photoshop, paste as a shape layer, and then scale it down. To about the same size as this one. It's about the same size. Okay, so we have landscape. We need to apply the bevel and emboss to it. How did I do that before? Remember, you can hold down the Option key and click and drag an effect. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? That's beautiful, isn't it? And we can duplicate this line if you want to. Duplicate as Option, click and drag. Okay, so we have two options. Okay, what would another one be? What's that? Portraits? Okay. Portraits. And so we'll cheat again. Look at that, cheating. Which one says portraits to you? This guy's got his head cut or what? This one? I kind of like this one without the little dots. What about this one? Is that portrait? Look, Pac-Man. How did I get in there? Person? Place or thing? Or how about this with the little hair? No? Which one? You got Einstein. Which one? Down further. Which one? Okay, I'm gonna go with the plain circle guy. Simple as that. Okay. Again, image trace, expand, remove the white part, copy, go back to Photoshop, paste, shape layer, scale it down. Make it about the same size. Remember, you can always duplicate your effect. Okay, you get the idea then, right? Can I move on to something else? But you see how to steal from websites, convert to vectors. You can copy and paste right into Photoshop. Very easy way of creating graphics. Very useful way. Notice how I have multiple objects now, of course. Multiple objects. Okay, so this is nice and fun and all, but it's kind of boring. It's kind of square, right? It's not very exciting. Buttons on my website. Traditional, let's just use a little icon with some text. Very traditional way of doing things. Let's say you wanted to make a little bit more interesting kind of buttons. There's a whole bunch of ways of doing graphics inside of Photoshop, and I'm gonna make some more graphics. I'm gonna get away from this. You get the idea of what I've done. In fact, I'm gonna make a new artboard. If I can find out how to make a new artboard. No, that's a new layer. They have an artboard tool. I guess we can make oh jeez. Really? You can make artboards with different color backgrounds. I didn't know that. I don't know if you could do that in Illustrator. Can you do that in Illustrator with different color backgrounds for your artboard? I didn't know that. Very nice. Okay, let me just work with some more shapes. Again, I want you to look at this tool now in Photoshop. What's this tool right here? The pen tool. You love your pen tool in Illustrator, don't you? I hope you do. If you don't love your pen tool, you better learn how to love your pen tool. So the pen tool works like it does inside of Illustrator, but you can use it to make different kind of shapes. So I'm going to make a little bit different type of button now. I'm going to make a button that has two objects. So I'm going to go and just put, again, the pen tool works by putting points down. So I'm going to make it kind of big so you can see. I'm going to make kind of a shape that looks like this. And then I'm going to make another shape, a separate shape. And then, of course, you can move your points around after putting down your shapes, again, by using the direct selection tool here. We can move these points around. And I know this is not the most perfect kind of shape. Why does it keep going to artboard tool? That's it. And then we can change our colors if we want of our object. Again, don't forget about the styles. There's a whole bunch of styles that you can use to apply. If you like a certain look, you can use a style. There's pre-made styles already made for you. I think we looked at this, that one class I was demonstrating this. Styles are located underneath Window Styles. Inside Styles, there's a whole bunch of pre-made ones. I kind of like the kind of glass-looking ones. You can apply them to an object like that. Again, these are pre-made graphics. All I did was use my my tool here, my vector tool, to make an object using the pen tool. Again, you can make any object. The pen tool works by just clicking and putting points down. Right? It works by clicking and putting. Always go back to the beginning. And then styles work by just applying them to an object by dragging them. If you want to alter one of the effects that you have applied to your object, like I like the style I used here. It's kind of a cool looking button there, but it's a little bit too dramatic for me. I want to tone it down. You can actually adjust these styles and adjust the effects that have been applied to an object inside of Photoshop by using the layers. In the layers window, you'll notice that it applied all these effects to this. So again, you have bevel and emboss, inner shadow, inner glow, satin, and color overlay. So if, let's say I didn't like purple and I wanted it to be my beautiful light blue. After I applied, again, this is a style that I applied to a shape. I can come over to the layers window, and all those effects have been applied. I can double click on one of them and I can change the color to what I want. The color overlay is the one that's driving the color. There we go. How about that? I like that. And again, you can copy an effect that you've done. What is this one? What is this one? Oh, get rid of that one. This one, I'm going to remove the effect, and then I'm going to duplicate this effect onto the other one. There we go. That looks a little better. And then of course, another kind of look that you can do to your text. I'm going to type some text over the top of this. And let's type in photography. I'm going to make it kind of dark text. I'm going to make it a little bigger. Okay, so another effect that's quite useful is to kind of give you more of kind of a chiseled look, if that's a word, chiseled look. So right now we just have this ugly black text that's kind of over top of my cool shape that I made using Photoshop here. And so if I wanted to give it some highlight, I can also, again, all these effects that I'm applying to things are located in the layers window. At the very bottom it says FX. Do you see it right here? It says effects right here. If I click on the effects, again, you have a whole bunch of them. Okay, the one I want to use is going to be inner glow, and I'm going to choose normal, and I'm going to choose white. Oh, am I applying it to the wrong one? Oh, I'm applying it for the whole artboard. Why is it doing that? Undo this. I can't cancel. Why am I not getting here? Where's my text? There's my text. What did I want to do? Inner, what did I say? Inner glow? And I'm going to say normal, and I'm going to choose white, and I'm going to tone it down, and I wanted it to be just a little bit on the edge. No, that doesn't look good. I don't want inner glow. How about inner shadow? I just want to give it a sculpture kind of look to it. Too much. There we go. That's what I wanted. There we go. So the one I'm using is called inner shadow, and I'm adjusting the size of it just a little bit so I have a nice sort of white on the one side of it. By using inner shadow, you have distance, choke, and size. And you can actually change the contour and stuff, but you can see before, after. Before, after. Just that little bit of chisel look to it. Chisel look. Okay? Chiseled look. We'll make it stand out just a little bit better than if it wasn't there. Watch. No. Yes. No. Yes. Gives it just a little bit. So again, all these are underneath effects right here. And again, all these are under style. And you can use the pen tool to make weird shapes. That's a weird shape. Is that a weird shape? So there's a million different ways of making graphics to simulate for websites. You can see how you can steal graphics from the web. You can apply different effects. Also, you know, if you look at most navigational bars are just plain simple rectangles. I mean, you can simply go and make a rectangle and give yourself kind of a color to that. No, didn't give me change my color. Oh, I guess I have to do it in here. And you could just simply put some text in there, common navigational bars. Might just be plain. Why is it doing pink? And then put a little shape in there. There we go. How about we just put a little line between it? There we go. Little line. Duplicate this. Remember, option click and drag. Option click and drag. What did you say? Contact? You know, a simple navigational bar could be just like that. You don't have to use all these effects. Okay, so simple navigation. So you should be thinking about a type of, I think that's why we did the mind map last class, was so that we could think about the different sections of John's website, right? Okay, so you should be practicing your Photoshop skills. All these things I showed you today. Yes? What's that? It's still recording right now. How about if we stop it?